Hello and welcome to Hollywood Talks. I am your host, Bel Hernandez Castillo. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Selena Ringel, award-winning actress, comedian, writer, and producer. Her most recent film, You, Me, and Her, has been making waves across the globe with its star-studded cast, premiering at prestigious festivals such as Dances with Films, New York Latino Film Festival, and most recently, the Mexican American Film and Television Festival. The film has captivated audiences everywhere. With a perfect 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes, critics have hailed this film as a groundbreaking film.
How was the rest of your Mexico trip? Did you have the threesome you guys wanted?
Oh,
What?
no.
Te voy a extrañar mucho. ¿Me escuchaste?
This is our first trip without the little guy. This is a special occasion.
It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have fun.
People always congratulate you when you've been together for like a really long time, but that doesn't mean that you've been like happily together.
You have this incredible energy. Like mom energy?
I'm curious to be crazy. You have crazy eyes.
Bobby and I like to have sex with other people.
So have you always been attracted to women?
I mean, now that you're asking, maybe yeah, I've just never really done anything about it.
We should go out.
Welcome, Selena. So wonderful to have you on Hollywood Talks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Glad to see her latest film, You, Me, and Her, because it is just so full of nuances and so full of life and authenticity. And it's also a fun film. It's not like a heavy film. It is like a fun film. I would even say it's like a rom-com, but it's not.
I know.
Right?
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit like an anti-rom-com or something, but it is in tone, it is like a rom-com. I agree with you.
What got you into wanting to be a filmmaker? And then we'll come up to talk about your latest film.
Well, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. So I actually, that's what I went to Loyola Marymount. I studied film. Then I worked in distribution for a year. Then I went to AFI. I did my master's in film at AFI as a producer. And I remember when I was very young, I grew up in Mexico, in Guadalajara, and I always wanted to be an actress. So that was just always what I was trying to do. But there were a few things that were happening, but it was really like few and far between. And I was actually booking significantly stuff there.
As an actress.
But part of it was also because, you know, my mom's American, my dad's Mexican. So my English was really good. So a lot of the stuff that was happening there where they needed someone who had really perfect English, I was kind of like the right, you know, so I was doing pretty well. And I remember at some point telling my parents, like, I kind of just want to do this full time. And they were like, no, you know, you have to finish school. It's kind of like out of the question for you to stop school to go do this. So I was like, okay. So I finished school. So then I came to LA, and then I kind of had like a little bit of like an La La Land moment, you know, where Emma Stone, like I walked into the audition room and everyone kind of looked like me. And I felt like it was very overwhelming, and everyone had this huge resume and they've been doing it for years. And I think I just took myself out of the equation. You know, I just thought like, this is too hard. It's like you sit in traffic for an hour, you get 2 minutes in the room. Everybody else has been sitting here for an hour too. Like it just felt all of a sudden like, wait, I don't know if I can actually do this. So I decided that instead of being an actor, I would be a producer, because in my mind, a producer has a lot more control, which is funny now looking back, because that's not necessarily true either. But anyway, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a producer. Then I'll control what I do. I'll feel like, you know, things are a little bit more in my hands, etc. Okay. So then I go to AFI, I do my master's in producing. And as I was doing that, I was actually doing a lot of casting for other people. I was producing stuff for people. I was reading a lot of stuff. And I started writing my own material. And when I was casting things for other people, I kept like really enjoying the casting process. And I was always kind of really getting into the read with other actors. And It's so funny because I've actually had like a 10-year career in casting, which I don't even talk about because it's just like not necessarily what I was trying to focus on. It's just kind of something that happened to me while I was trying to do all these other things. But basically, long story short, I graduated from AFI. I started my production company with my husband, and I had written this feature that I produced, that I cast, that my husband directed. That was our first feature.
Which one was that?
That one was called The Best People.
Uh,
And on Amazon, it was sold through Samuel Goldwyn. And it's actually available, I think, in like over 50 countries,
mm,
which is pretty amazing. Yeah.
so I knew you as an actress, but that was a comedian. And then I learned when I interviewed you the first time that you're a producer. But
Yeah.
I never knew about your trajectory because you have completed all the different elements that take you to now be the producer and in charge of what your film is going to be about. And you have all of those credits. You have the casting, you have the producing, you have the acting. Because it really is interesting. Some people, some women, when they start in the business, they want to be actresses like you did,
Yeah.
right? And although the power doesn't really like wholly stay in producing, like you said,
Yeah.
once you're well-rounded,
Yeah.
you have so many more chances to do the projects that you want to do because you're writing them,
Yeah.
right?
The thing is, yeah, it's interesting. I feel like at the end of the day, without even realizing it, I was giving myself a lot more opportunities by having had the journey that I had, because by the time I got to making my second feature, I was like, wait a minute, I'm writing this. I'm finding the money for this. I'm finding the crew for this. I'm like, why can't I be the main actress? You know what I'm saying? Like, who decided that not me? Me. I was the one who decided not me. And so then I was like, I'm just gonna make myself the lead of this movie. And I did. And what's so crazy about that movie was that I was actually pregnant. So that was Single Mother by Choice. And I actually filmed once a month throughout my entire real pregnancy during the pandemic, which
Yes.
obviously that was not on purpose. We thought we were making one movie, and then the pandemic hit, and we had to completely rewrite the movie and make a different movie so that we could keep shooting. And so we had a movie. A lot of people just had to go on pause.
But
And
that's interesting because had you not been the producer and your husband not been the director,
yeah,
when the pandemic hit, you would have said, okay, well, this isn't happening. But you
yeah,
were able to pivot and
yeah,
and rewrite some of the story so that it could include the pregnancy and include, it was all inside, right? That you hardly had anything. You did have a couple of scenes outside, but most of it was inside.
yeah. And also, I mean, we had to pivot with that. It's like we lost our crew. Like we couldn't, because I was also actually pregnant. So like I couldn't have, this is an indie movie, but we had like a 25-person crew. I couldn't have 25 people around me and just take my chance and see if I get COVID. Like at the time, it was like the zombie apocalypse. Like we all thought we were going to die. So we were like, how do we keep making this movie and like not put my baby in danger? So it was like, well, I guess we just can't have a crew anymore. So then my husband actually bought the camera, learned how to use it on Zoom because he's not a cinematographer. So
Wow.
he had to actually like take lessons on Zoom on how to use the camera. And then I became like the production designer. I did my own makeup. Like and it was funny because we'd have to like rewatch things to be able to place things back where they were in the first scenes because we're trying to keep continuity, but now we don't have a crew. So we don't have like any help.
Oh my
So
gosh.
crazy making.
That is amazing. And
Yeah.
and you were pregnant at the
Yeah,
same time.
I was actually pregnant. So that was part of why we also had to be so careful. And it was also a very scary time to be pregnant. But I think in a way it kind of kept us sane because there was so much that was out of our control and there was so much I wasn't allowed to do that just being able to like keep focusing on finishing this movie was like keeping us like, yeah, it was a really
Where did you meet your husband? Did you meet him in school?
Yeah, at AFI, at
Oh,
AFI. And then that movie we actually sold to HBO. So what's really crazy about that movie was that, and it was, I mean, I think we made a good movie, but I also think it was like miracle timing, right? Because all of a sudden we're in the height of the pandemic. There's absolutely no content at all because everything's been shut down. Except for we just kept going because we were such a small, like we ended up going from 25 people crew to like just me and my husband doing everything and just continuing to make the movie. So then all of a sudden it was like we were like the little train that could. And then we had this like product that was ready to go in a moment where nothing was available because everyone had to shut down. So then we were able to actually get like a really good deal. We like doubled our investment and sold it directly to HBO, which is like
wow.
incredible for like an indie movie. You know what I'm saying?
But you know what's interesting, because you mentioned that you worked in distribution for a year.
Yeah.
So it's like the perfect the storm to be successful, because not a lot of independent producers and filmmakers get to sell their project, especially the first one. And
Yeah.
in your case, it was perfect because now you knew how to sell, you
Yeah.
had connections and all that. So then tell us about your third movie.
Yeah, so my third movie was based on, well, I had already had my son at that point. And my husband and I went on a trip to Vegas actually. And this woman was kind of like hitting on me at this club in Vegas, which is not something that I've ever experienced before. Like I really haven't had that experience before, but when it happened, I actually kind of thought to myself, like, this is a really beautiful woman. Like, I don't know, like I would be curious. And it was weird. Like I had this moment where I realized, like, now I'm married. I've been with this person for 10 years. Like, I'm not a cheater. I'm not a liar, but so what does that mean? Like, is this just it? Like, you know what I'm saying? And then this like beautiful woman seemed to like really want to like kiss me and get to know me. And I felt like, like I wonder, what my husband would say. Obviously, he was there, when this was all happening. So I asked him, I was like, I think I would be kind of curious to see what it's like to be with a woman. What do you think? And he was like, oh my God, are you joking? Like, yes, of course. Like, that's, and I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think it was gonna be like,
This is so funny because to me, men, that's something that they're totally on board. Most men are totally
yeah,
on board for that.
yeah. Yeah, I guess. By the way, I think if I would have said, hey, there's this hot guy hitting on me, would that be okay? He would have been
No.
like, no. So anyway, but long story short, she took my phone number. And then she actually never called me, which is funny because it was like, I remember that whole night, like me and my husband were having these conversations of like, so what if she says this? And then what do I say? But then what should we do? But I don't know. Are we being crazy? Maybe we shouldn't do this. I don't know. You know what? But what if I say this and then you say that? And like, we had like, and it was so funny over this thing that never happened, by the way, because this person.
And that's what's hilarious. That's what's in the movie. And
Yeah.
just the way you're telling it, it was so authentic. It comes from reality, right?
Yeah, and we were just like, and I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, we're so connected right now. Just like over this conversation, like we
Yeah.
were laughing so much. We were having so much fun, just thinking about what we would say to this woman.
And in the movie, the way you set it up is that your husband in the movie and yourself are having like issues with careers, and life at home is a little bit stale and a little bit, you're separate. So it really, really leads you to the point where you connect on this, and
Yeah.
then you get closer.
Well, and I think also, I mean, I think I'm very lucky and I have a very nice marriage. I really love my husband, but obviously we have moments of that, so I think and I think most marriages do. I think it's like marriages my experience of it is it's kind of like there's ebbs and flows, right? So there's like flows where everything feels really good and you're like, oh my God, I totally know why I'm with this person. We're such a great team. This is amazing. And then there's moments where you're like, why am I married to this person? I can't stand this person right now. And then you're like, oh, they just did. Okay, now I remember. Okay, it's because we're a really good team. It's because, you know what I'm saying? So I think like part of what we did, which was also a little scary for both of us, was that we took some things that were real and we kind of put them in there, and then we exaggerated those things. But even in doing that, there was like a lot of conversations where it was like, wait, what, do you think I'm really like that? You know? And it was like, well, no, we're trying to go to like a real place. And it's like, okay, but how real are we? You know? And so it was a lot of psychology just between the two of us trying to explore how honest we wanted to be with these characters about where they're at. And also like, you know, how bad is the marriage? And like how, you know, I like characters that are flawed. So both the lead characters are flawed, but it's like you also want them to be likable enough that people are willing to go on the journey, you know, and that was another thing we had to really like tackle together. Like, is she, you know, is she likable enough? Is he likable enough, even though these are people with flaws?
You mentioned something about, going through all this discussion that you as a producer, actress, lead actress, and your husband as a director, you're working together. That already in itself is something like, how hard is it to work with your husband? Was it harder to work on this last film because of you putting yourself into it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the last movie was also real because my pregnancy was real.
Right.
So what was hard about that one was how I physically was feeling, the fact that COVID was actually happening. There was a lot of doubt as to whether we were going to actually be able to finish the movie, what the movie was going to be about. I mean, like we were doing it in real time because the world was changing constantly. So it was like, now you can go to doctor's appointments. Now you can't. Now the coffee shop down the road has been closed. Now you're not allowed to see anyone. Now they're saying that it might be going away. Now they're saying that it's not going to go away and everyone's going to, so it was like a lot of confusing information. So that was the part that was hard for that movie. But I think that for that movie, it was easier for us to come together and be like, oh, look, the world is in a really crazy place. How do we come together and make something during this time? Whereas this movie was a little bit more like us, facing each other. So that's a little bit harder psychologically, because it was like, what are we really trying to say? And how do we stay kind to each other, getting the point across that we're trying to get, and be really honest, And the other thing that I really wanted in this movie too is that this couple, this woman is the primary breadwinner of, and that was really important to me too, because I think that's something that has become a lot more common too, that we don't see a lot. And there's a dynamic there that can be very interesting and strange and affects the marriage. And so it was like, we didn't want that to be what the movie's about, but we wanted it to have like a backdrop of the,
that was you addressed something that, like you said, is more and more common.
Yeah.
That the woman is successful and dynamic and
Yeah.
the male is home. And just because of gender expectations,
Yeah.
The man doesn't feel like enough.
Yeah.
When they're home taking care of the child, and the character, what was the name of the character of the play, your husband's name?
Oh,
Not
Ash.
Ash, right?
Yeah.
He had like a little bit like, I want to show you how that I am also a productive member of this family. It was so real. It was really, really good the way you handled it.
Thank you. Yeah. I think that stuff is important too. It's like, and I see it more and more in my friendships, and I see it's just something that, women are incredibly powerful. And when women are doing well, it's like we all say what we want women to do well. And then sometimes for the man, it can be really difficult because you said it's like almost like we've been marketed this idea that if a mom stays home with the kids, that's okay. That's just, that we all accept that. But if for some reason the, dad stays home with the kids and the mom goes out and works, it's like, whoa, what is going on with that dynamic? Like, is everyone okay? Like people
It's like he's not man enough, right?
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
have these. So
Yeah.
I liked your casting too, because Ash is an Indian, Indian man.
Yeah.
And, the woman that your love interest, she's Afro,
Yeah. She's
African
also
American.
Asian. So she's Korean
Yeah.
and African American. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about, you also have done casting. So what was the idea behind the casting? I'm sure it was to show the world the way we really are nowadays.
When I wrote it with kind of diverse, like I had a picture in my head of what I wanted the world to look like, because I think it's important that it's all kind of there, So I had, like, for example, my au pair is Latin, but she's not Mexican. She's from, Argentina. And then, like, I had some other Mexicans in Mexico that were white Mexicans, but then I had other Mexicans that were darker Mexicans. But then I also had, my husband who was Indian American, and then this one. And I really wanted it to just be like every version of diversity should just be part of the flowing nature of the world. And I wanted it all to have like a backdrop, but not the movie to be about that, just to be like, we all get to just be who we are, and the backdrop is that the world is diverse.
And I liked the fact that when you're in Mexico, you are put it out there because you're blonde, and they think you're a gringa, right? In Mexico.
Yeah.
And you're going and you go into the explanation, and at the same time that you're explaining to the character, you're explaining to the viewer that's watching, oh, I get it. Because still people don't realize that in Mexico and in Latin America, we come in all colors. We're not, just the dark, indigenous. We're all colors and nationalities, because we also have Asian Mexicans. We have all of them. I mean, I love that, because you're also educating people in how the world really is in Mexico, because people think Mexico and they go, oh, little town, little ranchito.
Yeah. Well, and also it is my experience, like it's interesting. Like people like have a really strong reaction to the fact that I'm Mexican. They're like, what? How is that possible? Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's what you said. It's like, there's so many different versions of being Latino, and there's so many different versions of what it looks like to, what your hair, and I'm Jewish too, which I put in the film, but it's also like, how can there be a Jewish Mexican? And it's like, what are you talking about? There's a huge community of Jewish Mexicans, like, but it's like, I just think there's a way that, like, unless you've seen it, it's like feels super strange. And so I just wanted to create a world where all these things just are a part of the world, and we just kind of accept them and move on,
It's giving the viewers a view into a world that they live in but are not really aware of.
Yeah.
And it brings people closer together, because they go, oh, they're just like us.
Yeah.
Which was interesting, because remember I asked you about the resort where you went, where the couple in your film go.
San Pancho.
Okay. So you talk in the film, the couple goes to this resort called San Pancho. And I thought she made it up. I mean, this is not. And so you're teaching someone who comes from Mexico this resort. Tell us where that is.
It's by Puerto Vallarta. So it's like an hour away from Puerto Vallarta in car. It's kind of like between Puerto Vallarta and Punta Mita.
Mm.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's the town next to Sayulita.
And what is your next project? What are you looking to do for your next project? Because how many stories are in your head getting ready to be films?
Yeah. So thank you. Well, I do have a script that is what I want my directorial debut.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Congrats.
Yeah, which I'm really excited about. Yeah. And I actually have a friend of mine, Rosalind Sanchez.
Oh, of course. Yeah. We all know Rosalind Sanchez, guys.
Yeah,
Wonderful
she's
actress.
amazing. And she's come on as an EP. And so now we're getting the financing in place. But I'm really, really excited about that feature.
What is that focus of that feature?
It's about um, it's about a teenager who's obsessed with social media and thinks everyone's life is better than hers. And she gets this magical phone, which allows her to body switch into the lives of the people she's been obsessing over on social media. And then I'm also going to shout out that I do have a stand-up comedy special that is all mom material called Two Moms, One Mic that is also on Amazon.
Oh, all right. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Amazing. She's Selena, you are amazing. I really like your writing. Your acting is wonderful. And your comedy, everybody go see that when it's out, or it is out on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. It's like having, a girl talk. Where can they follow you, Selena?
On Instagram at Selena Ringel, SelinaRingel. The Best People also is on Amazon. It's available right now, and it's also a great movie that I wrote that my husband directed. And You, Me, and Her should be coming out soon, so I'll also keep you guys posted with that.
Thank you for being here on Hollywood Talks.
Thank you so much, Belle.